Time to review Kenna Bridges Spirits. Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? It is the Best Bot Kid Smooth, and today I'm talking about Kenna Bridges Spirits. Just wrapped it up on the PlayStation 5, so I figured I'd do a quick review. This is off the top, nothing scripted. Just want to give you guys my opinion and see if I can recommend it for you. So, Kenna Bridges Spirits is made by Ember Labs. These guys specialize in animation, stuff for like movies and whatnot, cartoons. This is their very first video game. So they took their talents from animation work and they put it to a video game called Kenna. People have different names for it, but I call it Kenna. It's a story-driven action adventure game. It got some exploration, got some puzzles, got some fast-paced combat, kind of got a little bit of everything. A couple key features about this game that you're gonna learn and that you're seeing that's very consistent. You know, you build your team. Kenna is she's obviously the main character, but there's these things these little cute little munchkins that you collect. They're not legit munchkins. They're just like these little cute little furry things. They're called the Rot. You go through levels and stages and you collect over like 100 of these guys, and these guys kind of enhance Kenna's combat, her protection, and her exploration. So the more you collect of these guys, the better it is. So you're gonna find yourself collecting rot, and you think these cute little things, why are they called the Rot? Because there's nothing rotten about them. So after beating the game, I still haven't quite figured out why they call it the Rot. Because you think of rot, you think of nasty fungi, and there's nothing really disgusting about these little guys. Obviously you explore. There's different trials in different areas and traversing different levels that you go through. Have a lot of little secrets, a lot of collectibles. This game have its own version of a collectathon on here, even though I wouldn't consider that. And the combat, even though it's technically a combat heavy game. It is a combat heavy game. I'm not the biggest fan of the combat, and I'll explain that, but obviously there is combat in this game. A lot of people look at the images, they see the name, they see the little cute, the Rot, they see Kenna, and you would think this is a child's game. And to me, honestly, it's far from a child's game. Sure, the story is cliche, it's it's something you would watch on like Netflix or something like that. One of those budget, DreamWorks movies that they, send out to like Netflix and whatnot. So the story is like, it's passable. It's not like groundbreaking. It's understandable. It has a purpose. It does its job. It gets it done. And I don't have anything negative to say about it. There's nothing really ideally bad about the story. It makes sense for what you're doing in the game, and it all comes together very well. Now, as far as the game presentation, visually the game looks good. However, it's not perfect. There are things that stand out once you're playing. Like I know they offer a resolution mode and a performance mode. I played the entire game in performance mode. The things that I noticed that kind of stood out is a lot of time in motion. I felt like the image quality breaks down a little bit to the point it's too visible for me. And I don't know if that's because they're using some sort of checkerboard rendering or if it's just motion blur or whatever, but it just broke up a little bit too much for my liking, and I felt like it distorted the image a lot of the time. So it wasn't this picture perfect, beautiful, graphically, demanding game that we assumed that it would be. This game, once you start playing, and maybe the visual novelty wears off, but it starts to look like a regular video game. The more you play and the more you look, it's not a knock against it, but I will be upfront with you guys. It's not the best looking game I've seen by any stretch of the imagination. As far as the the story, the weird thing is, it's like when you're playing the story and you're passing levels and you're beating bosses, you'll get these cutscenes they're not in like real time. They're not in game. They're literally pre-recorded cutscenes running at 20 frames per second, which creates it sort of breaks the immersion where you're playing, because you'll get a black screen and then a video plays, And it does that probably 80% of the time. There are instances where there actually is in-game or in-engine cutscenes where the visuals and it's not too far off for what's actually going on, but it's too far in between and very, very rare. It's not the norm. It's not so that served as a distraction to me in regards to the presentation. Now let's talk about gameplay. The gameplay is actually fun. It's passable. I like the gameplay loop. The issues I did have related to the combat is that it's not diverse enough, and it's not there's not a lot going on. The skill tree is very small. There's not a lot that you learn. It's not a lot of things that you get, not a lot of abilities, but for what's there, it is good. For what you get, it is good. But the thing is, these flaws start to come out when you're doing these boss fights. Now, as far as boss fights, I give them an A+ because there is a lot of boss fights, but the difficulty, the difficulty gap, I don't know, it just they're difficult, and this is why I said I don't think it's much of a children's game because these boss fights are difficult, and the lack of diversity in combat and the limited combat is what actually sort of impacts the difficulty, because I feel like the game's combat system isn't diverse enough to really, mechanically, get into these boss fights comfortably. So there's going to be a lot of frustration. I had a lot of frustration with some of the boss fights, but you kind of have an appreciation for them because even though we didn't anticipate that from this game, you do appreciate it. So I was like, I'm not mad at the boss fights, but the boss fights made me less appreciate the combat system because I feel like the combat system is flawed because this game proved to be more of a combat game than what was sold. But as far as overall, I mean, there's just some performance issues here and there that I experienced. But as far as like my experience alone, I did find the game fun. It was a great game. Felt very, very old school. What Ember Lab proved is that for a first game, this is very, very good. Very good first game. It's not gaudy. It's not Game of the Year. It's not you know what I mean? It's not spectacular. It's just very good. If this was a game made by anyone else that's made games, it would just be, average, But I appreciate, what they were able to do with whatever budget that they had. They nailed the visuals for at least for the budget that they had. And the gameplay is decent for the budget that they have. I don't find the game bad. And I like all the stuff that you do get and how the game opens up. The expansion of the game, the map, and the abilities you do learn, they all come together very, very nicely. And if I really had to put a score on Kana, man, oh man, I would probably give it a solid, given that it's a first time studio, dude, first time, I have to give this game a solid 7.5. And that's not that it's a bad, it's just like I said, I don't know, I mean, it's 7.5 too. This is why I don't like giving scores. I recommend the game 8. If we're gonna put a real number, 8. Recommend the game. I do recommend the game. It's $40, and this is where actually the back to reality comes in. The game's actually only $40. I give it a 7 or something like that if it was like a $60, $70 game, but it's $40, so actually that's well worth it. And there wasn't nothing dramatic, at least not a big deal game that came out. Obviously, a couple weeks ago we had Deathloop, thought that was great, but after you get through with that, I think this is a nice follow-up game, and it's available on PS5, PS4, and PC, and hopefully this game comes out soon for Xbox because I will play it again if that's the case. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts on Kena Bridge of Spirits. Maybe there's something that I missed. Is there anything that you want me to touch up on or ask about that I didn't talk about? As far as boss fights, like I said, they can be tough. You're gonna have problems with obviously the last boss. You're gonna have trouble with the corrupted Taro. And a couple other, there's one that flies that kind of gave me some trouble. And the thing is about these bosses, there's a ton of them. You got main bosses, and then you have bosses that you have to get through the main bosses. And that's what I found. I didn't find any difficulty changes in difficulty. I felt like your non-main bosses was just as hard as your main bosses, and that might throw some people off. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys on the next review. That's it. Peace.